Working on a weekend like usual. Way off in the deep end like usual. Niggas swear they passed us, they doing too much. Haven't done my taxes.
Thank you for tuning in to From the Seven podcast, where we bring a perspective to the mindsets for the real world. I'm your boy Deuce, always here with my right-hand man Stat, and it's origin story time today. Today we're going to get into Stat's origin story. We're going to talk about his upbringing, how he struggled to find his identity, also some dark places that he went to and channeling that into the passions that he carries out today. Y'all gonna take a lot from this, man. Y'all could get a lot of perspective and cultivate it into your own lives, and you're gonna learn a lot about some adversity and reason why we are here today. Before we get into all that, though, quick announcements.
Yep, guys. So make sure you subscribe to the Stat TV YouTube page. That's where all the podcast episodes will be posted every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. You can follow From the Seven podcast on TikTok as well as Instagram. You can follow me at Stat Zay, Deuce at _Deuce West. If you would like to get Stat merch, that link is in my bio. We got From the Seven merch on the way. We appreciate all the love and support we've been getting. Right now, we have a goal of getting to 1,000 subscribers. So make sure you share this with a friend, like the video. And again, everybody that's already reached out, we appreciate you guys, and we're going to keep on going with the content. It's going to be a good episode today, man. I'm excited to share my story, and I know people are going to take a lot from it, and it's going to be cool for me even just reflecting back on how far I've came. So it's going to be a good one.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, I've known you for a very long time, bro. Your story is very unique. I know a lot of people are going to gain so much from this. So for the people who don't know who Stat is, give them a little rundown of, how you were raised, your family dynamic, things like that, growing up as a kid.
Yep. So, I mean, everybody knows, we're both from Richmond, South Side area, Chesterfield area. I grew up with both parents in the house, but the dynamic was a little bit different with having both parents. I looked up to my dad, one of the coolest guys that I know, man. He was a great dad, hard worker. He was somebody that he always treated us with that respect from an early age, and like we were, an adult, and I always looked up to him for that, and he always shared a lot of knowledge to us because of that respect level. And he just loved people, man, and he loved people to the point where some people took advantage of that, and I think I had to deal with some of those things too, which we'll get into. But he loved people. He would give you the shirt off his back, and anybody that met him knows that he was always going to show love and just be happy and always be that person that you felt comfortable around. Now, on the other hand, with my mom, I love my mom, but, growing up in the household, my dad drove trucks. He drove 18-wheelers. And, I realize now when I look back on my life and some of the things that I've experienced, like my dad, I think he knew shortly after me and my brother were born. I have an older brother, Braxton. He kind of knew that there wasn't really a great relationship with my mom, and just to put it short, she wasn't really a team player, somebody that was super supportive and things like that. But he dropped out of high school and he worked hard to still provide for the family. He took care of everything, and a lot of times I think the way he dealt with that was by being gone, like being over the road and things like that. And so with my mom, there was a lot of manipulation coming from that side, and it was something that something that me and my brother struggled with growing up. And like I said, we'll get into that a little bit more, but that was kind of the dynamic growing up, man. And because of that too, like speaking of my brother, he was mean to me growing up. And I know that sounds harsh, and him being the bigger brother, like some of that comes with it, but I knew there was more to it than that. And I never took it personal, but a lot of the stuff that we had to deal with kind of came out in that relationship there. And so it just made things a little bit more difficult for me as well growing up. But, yeah, that was kind of how things were, at a young age, and even going into, the later years of school and things like that.
So when did basketball become a passion or become an idea for you? Like what?
Yeah.
How did that look?
So when I first we lived in Richmond up until I was in ready to go to kindergarten, so 4 or 5. We moved to Chesterfield, and at that time I was playing baseball and skateboarding. And I wasn't playing baseball, organized baseball, because I was young, but I loved just throwing the ball up and hitting it. I remember playing video games like home run derby, stuff like that. and I had a Walmart skateboard. You know, Tony Hawk was very popular at that time, and for some reason, that's what I gravitated towards. But when we moved to Chesterfield, for those who know the Meadowbrook teams back in the day, Sean Alden, who played for Meadowbrook, he lived right across the street. His birthday was the same as mine, same day. He was older, you know, cool, I guess you would say, and he played basketball. And so that was what I looked up to him, and he had a court in his backyard. We ended up getting a court in our driveway, and I kind of emulated what I saw him doing. And that's what kind of got me into basketball. And it was just fun for me at first, you know, at that age. And I remember, fast forward to, you know, 5th grade year, my mom, she put me in the rec ball for Beulah. And I remember her telling me I had to do it because she saw how much I liked basketball, how much I looked up to Sean. She told me I had to go play basketball, and I didn't want to at first. But after I saw that she was serious and she wasn't going to let me not do it, I kind of was like, all right, well, let's see what happens. In our first year, we go out there, we go undefeated, and we win the championship. So like that was, for me, the first time that I felt like I attached myself to something bigger than just for me, and it was something that was cool. It was fun. I mean, everybody in the neighborhood did it, and the culture that we come from, it's either basketball or football, especially at that age. So that was something that, you know, I said I was going to go with.
So when you decided to play basketball, I know you, again, I know your story, but was it easy to transition to? Like, did you have a lot of peers in your neighborhood that kind of wanted to do the same things you wanted to do?
Yeah, so I remember it, man. You know, as I started playing basketball, we had a guy move next to us, Vietnamese guy, Qua. Some people may know him as Tommy. He ended up the same way I looked up to Sean, he looked up to us. I remember Steve Francis was his favorite player, so he's next door. He's playing basketball. Josh was there. Sean is his cousin, so he coming over to the house. That's how we met. And then you had Patrick and all those guys, and I remember them moving in a little bit later on, and they were from New York. And, you know, they used to come down and play basketball with us, and we actually didn't even get along when we first met. And I remember just the competitiveness of basketball, like they kind of wanted to like fight us in the beginning, but we ended up being cool just being in the neighborhood. And, you know, I look back at that time now and I realize, like, just like I said with my dad, you know, we were taught to treat everybody the same. We were taught to just be respectful. Our parents raised us to be great for the world. They didn't necessarily raise us to be self-aware, but as far as being respectful and like knowing how to operate in the world and move on in the world, they taught us all the things that we needed to know for that. And a lot of those people from the neighborhood didn't really, like, they took advantage of that, you know? And I thought they were my friends, and that was really the only friends at that time that I had because, like I said, we all related to basketball. And so, you know, I didn't understand it then just because of the things I was dealing with at home. But I kind of knew at the same time, like, I saw how they treated other people when they were around them versus when it was just us. And it was almost like, you know, I could just see those differences and like how they saw me as a friend versus how I saw them as a friend.
And I think that's tough at a young age to even try to grasp with those things. Cause, you know, our neighborhood was a lot different. You know, we played y'all a couple times in like competitive basketball, football. Y'all would come over to the neighborhood, and just seeing that from afar, as a kid, I saw a difference. You know, like it wasn't the same tight knit group that you would think that y'all would have, which you understand that now, and later on in your life, you started to understand that those people really weren't your friends, but it was just hard for you to even accept that or even to know that at the time.
Yeah, I felt different. I felt different in those times, but I never spoke on it because, you know, being at home, my mom, I mean, people that know me know that I'm very in tune with my emotions. And, like, at that age, when you don't know yourself, like, that can come out in so many different ways. And so, you know, I think that those so-called friends saw the same things, and they just kind of took advantage of that niceness, you know. And then, like I said, just being around my dad and how nice he was, like, it just benefited them to be around sometimes when they weren't with their other people. So yeah, it was tough, and I didn't realize it, but I did realize that, like, shit was a little different, you know.
Yeah. So we met probably like close to going into middle school, 5th grade, around that time.
Yeah.
And we got into middle school, went to Fallen Creek Middle, and you didn't try out for the basketball team right away. You had a very drawn out plan of how you was going to do it because of the politics in basketball, and you found that out early on.
Yeah.
But just kind of walk us through that. Walk us through what made you decide to wait until your 8th grade year to try out? And were you okay with that, being that you were still going to be playing rec ball and things like that?
Yeah, so after the 5th grade year, we went undefeated. We won the championship. The culture around rec ball at that time was almost like the school team. I mean, everybody, because when you play rec ball, you can't pick a team that you want to play for, just like any school team. You had to play for the elementary school that was in your district, which was Beulah. So going into 6th grade, I was just riding off that high from the first year, and I also knew going into it, because that was my first time meeting Drew in 5th grade. At our championship game, they had just played theirs before ours, and we all knew about Drew, and everybody knew about our team because we were undefeated. So after they had won, we played next, and I remember that was the first time me and Drew kind of exchanged words or whatever. And going into middle school, I think because of Drew, I kind of looked at it like, okay, well, what's the politics of it? They pick 1 6th grader, 2 7th graders, and the rest are 8th graders. So for me, I don't know if it was a conscious decision, but I just said, you know what, I'm going to play for Beulah. My best chance at this is at 8th grade. Let me get a couple years under my belt. I'm having fun. I'm playing with my friends. Let's go that route. And then I end up playing 6th grade and 7th grade, preparing to go into 8th grade and say, you know what, this is what I want to do. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah, because you saved yourself. Again, we didn't know this at the time, but you really did help. You protected your mental at that point, as far as like getting your hopes up and then kind of getting disappointed, because my story, I got cut. I tried out 7th, 8th grade, but I got cut both of those years. So that was very smart for you to pick that up, and that already right there showed that you was different. A lot of people were not thinking about that, and a lot of people don't think things out like you do still to this day.
For sure.
But I remember there being quite a few incidents in school where kind of guys were kind of picking on you a little bit. Like, how was that, being different, and some people kind of being afraid of that, and they could just kind of take it out on you and kind of pick on you. How was that for your? Yeah,
so going into 8th grade, in my mind, I'm trying out. I wasn't like saying I definitely was going to make the team or anything like that. Like, to me, I really was taking it as, you like basketball, this is going to be the true test to see if it's going to work out. And I remember even then at that time, and this, they would say, because we had intramurals, which was like preseason workouts, but it's really just open gym. And they say, if you go to open gym or go to intramurals and Coach Scott asks you your name and how tall you are, like, then you probably going to make the team. And I remember one of the first few days, I'm walking and he did that. And I remember feeling excited, like, okay, I got a shot, And I think it was at that point, or maybe it was even before that. I want to say it had to be after that, because I went and bought the Nike Shock Bombers. They were the Meadowbrook colors, which was the same as Fallen Creek, blue, gold, and white. And those were the shoes I wanted to wear for the season. I didn't even know what the jerseys looked like. Honestly, we ended up getting the Hirachi 2K5s, which was tough, but I felt like the Bombers fit the color scheme a little bit better. The Hirachis had too much blue and gold.
Did Coach let you wear them?
I didn't even think about it, because everybody else, it was only like me, Drew, and a couple other people who had the Hirachi. So I felt like, that's what we're rocking with. But I just remember wearing those Nike Shock Bombers to gym class, because I didn't really have like gym shoes and basketball shoes. And we're sitting on the bleachers, and I remember John, I'm on the top, he's right here, and like everybody else is just sitting there. We just kicking it in gym class, and he looking at my shoes, and he's like, "What you got those for?" And I was like, "I'm playing for the team this year." And everybody starts laughing, and in that moment, I realized when I look at my life, especially in that moment, I always have went into like, "Oh, you don't think I'm gonna do this," because again, dealing with stuff at home, like especially with my mom, she always felt like, she would compare us to like our cousins or guys we played basketball with. And so anytime that those things happen, I'm like, you don't even have a reason to think that, but like, I'm gonna show you. But at the same time, because I knew I was being treated different at home and by my so-called friends and everything else, it kind of just made me go into this space of like, why do y'all feel like I'm not worthy of this, and you don't even know, And I understand some of it was because I didn't try out up until that point, but even up until the point we get to tryouts, I remember being in science class, and my girlfriend at the time, Adriana, her and Brienne, we all had the same science class. I think we was in Miss Butler's class. I think it was her name. Real cool science teacher, and we were just talking about what we had going on. And I told her I was trying out for the team. And I remember Adriana laughing at me. And we laugh about it to this day, because she said I'll never forget it. But I won't, because I just remember thinking that same thing when John said what he said. It's just like, yo, you don't have anything, you have no reason to feel like that. What makes you think you can laugh because I said I take this serious? At this point, basketball is something that I'm gonna do. And so those two situations was ones that, like, again, it kind of solidified, like, I was being treated different. And I understand some of that comes with being young and just the dynamic of peer pressure and things like that. But for me, it was just like I could see everybody else not getting that same treatment.
I think it's interesting looking back on it now, especially with the Adriana situation, because that was your girl, right?
Yeah.
So your back was against the wall. Like, you were like, damn, like, all right, I got these, my peers laughing at me, but my girl laughing at me.
Yeah.
That was so well put for you to channel that and say, I'm going to show you, rather than shut down. Because as a kid, again, a lot of times it's the easier route is just to shut down.
Yeah.
You know, because now you don't know where to turn. Like, you at least think your girl's in your corner. So that's interesting. So once that happened, you said, I'm going to show y'all, right? So that lit a fire under you.
Yeah.
Going into trials, did you have that same fire intensity all the way through, or did it eventually die down?
I honestly don't even remember that time, other than the fact that it was like this. Basketball was something that I knew I could do. Regardless of what everybody else was saying, I kind of had a little bit of confidence because Coach Scott asked me my name and my height. So that's all I really needed, to be honest with you. And I knew what I did for Beulah. Like I said, my first year we went undefeated and won the championship, and I was a part of that. Like, I was the starter. I didn't really, at that age, you're not scoring 30 a game or nothing like that, but I was a big piece, And the other 2 years I played for Beulah, I remember the coaches was wanting to pick me because they knew I was a part of that team and what I did. So going into tryouts for middle school, it was just a matter of, like, man, as long as you make the team, we ain't tripping on nothing, you know what I'm saying? Because I ain't look at it no other way. I just took that as motivation and said, it's going to be what it's going to be, because I was still also trying to see, could I play at that level where I could try out? Because, again, Drew was the person that I always looked at. I remember, anybody that know at that time, we used to have a basketball court in our backyard, and that shit was like Iron Bridge for a little bit. Like, it used to be 30 motherfuckers in the backyard hooping. And I remember Drew being there when he was already playing for the school team, and I was still playing for Beulah. And so for me, it was really just like that. I was focused on, like, the dudes who I knew who, like, I'm going into it, I want to make the team and see if I can be at the same level as a guy like Drew, because everybody likes Drew.
Yep. So you did make the team.
Yeah.
You were on it. Was there any changes when you actually made the roster? Was there any type of setback for you mentally, or was it still, you still have more to prove?
For the most part, it was a great season, man. And one of the, times that was dope for me, a couple different times, the first game we played Carver, who's our rival. And it's the first game, so you're still trying to find your chemistry as a team. This is my first year playing school ball, so I'm learning a lot. At the same time, I just changed my jump shot. Coach Scott got us in there on Charlie. The first practice, because I used to wind it up because I didn't have enough power, and Coach Scott, like, yo, what are you doing? That's horrible. Get on Charlie. All you doing today is you shoot.
Shout out to Charlie, man. For those of y'all who don't know or not familiar with Fallen Creek, Charlie is just an old volleyball pole that's a shooting machine. Yeah. Well, not a shooting machine.
That joint was like machine, 12 bro. Feet tall.
Bro, it's just a pole, bro. And now, to see the, like, advancements of actually shooting machines now, it's ridiculous. But Coach Scott was a visionary, so
yeah, he had me on. He had me shooting over Charlie day one,
and I had to pull Charlie ass out of the closet, being a manager, and that joint was not. It was not light. That joint was heavy.
Yeah, it was on some, like, Jesus carrying the cross.
Yeah, no, really. No. Hey, nah, man. Rewind that back, bro. That's the perfect visual, dog. I had Charlie on my damn back, boy. He had the wheels at the bottom.
And that was the heaviest part, because that bitch was...
I said, man, these dudes better work on their jump shot, because I ain't carrying Charlie ass out there.
It wasn't always just in one spot. You had to move that bitch.
Man, God.
So we go into the Carver game. Again, this is our rival. It's the first game. And, real quick, shout out to Drew, man, because all this stuff that I'm dealing with at home with the so-called friends and my family, and, just not feeling like, just knowing that I'm different, right? Drew really embraced me. And like I said, I look to him because even today, I look at the best. Who is the best and what are they doing? How do I get there? And Drew was that for me. And
Absolutely.
going into middle school, 8th grade year, I was thinking that because everybody was treating me different, that Drew would maybe treat me different too. And he fully embraced me. And I was a guy. I was part of the team. Like I was a starter. I had a solidified spot on that team. And going into the Carver game, double digits at middle school, that's a huge thing.
Oh, yeah.
You know your name is going to be on the announcements. I wasn't going into it thinking that this was going to happen, but I ended up having 11 points. And the last two, I hit a and one go-ahead bucket to basically win the game. I missed the free throw, but that go-ahead bucket gave us the dub, and it was an exciting time, man. And I just remember all of us being hyped. I was hyped. I mean, I didn't even say I was hyped because I didn't think I could, like, oh, my God. Like, I was hyped because I'm like, no, we just got this win against Carver. Like, we ain't taking this L. We at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Coach Still, shout out Coach Still, man. He was playing at football at Virginia Tech, played for the Chargers, played in the NFL.
Yeah.
After that game, he came to me and he was like, hey, man, you the best player on the team.
Mm.
Now, at that time, I'm just like, what made you say that? Because, again, all I'm thinking is Drew. Drew is the top. Like, you got DJ who was before him, and Drew is that for me. So when he told me that, I'm just like, I'm kind of off. I'm hype off of it, but I didn't understand it, And looking back now, I understand a lot of the stuff that I do now that I was showing back then. He saw that then. I didn't see it because, again, I didn't have that village that we talk about. Those friends who weren't really my friends. My mom who was comparing me and all these things. I didn't really have people building me up. And so when he said that, it really did a lot for me, man. But, it was short-lived as well because I remember we had like this ice cream social thing, and right in that courtyard at Fallen Creek where they had the outside tables and stuff where the bus loop was at, and my mom was there, and I saw Coach Still, and I had ended up telling her at home what he said. And so when I saw him, I was like, Mom, that's Coach Still. That's the one who said I was the best player on the team. And she was like, he ain't say that. Now, again, she had no reason to say that.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, I'm just like, what? Why would you, again, she's comparing me to my cousin who he gets good grades and he does all the right things and comparing me to all these other players or whatever. Why do you not believe what I'm telling you? So I call him over. Coach Still, come over here. Tell my mom, didn't you say I was the best player on the team? And he was like, yeah, I said that. And she just kind of brushed it off. And, again, it's not that I'm sitting here saying, like, I went home and cried about it, right? But at the same time, it's just like that feeling of not being good enough.
Oh, yeah. Those, right now, what you're explaining to me and to the viewers out there is you've got all these different negative pieces chipping away at you.
Yeah.
Like chipping away.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that and understand that you are who you are surrounded around. You know what I'm saying? Like when you got a lot of negative energy around you, it's going to affect you regardless of how you say it won't or not.
Yeah.
And when you have positive and positivity around you, it just uplifts you and brings you up. And for you to have that in your own home, which was not positive, was a hard thing. And I'm glad I'm sitting here talking to you because you actually made it out.
Yeah.
And you're able to tell your story. And, going back to that, how big that Carver game was for you, not only, was it a situation where, again, you won, right? And your name going to be on the announcements.
Yep.
Because I was like, hearing your name on the announcements was like David Stern calling you up.
For sure.
Like you just got drafted, bro.
Yep.
Because you gonna act like you not gonna know your name on there. Everybody go, did they just say your name? Yeah. Like, you know what I'm saying? And it was just one of those things. So like going back to that, man, and sharing what you shared earlier about the people that was already laughing at you, your girl not in your corner, that already was like, this is the first game and this is what I've done. Yep. You already had accomplished something that you thinking like, I really can do it.
Yeah.
Right. But then something happened at the end of the season.
Yep.
Explain what that was.
So again, fun year, man. To this day, probably one of my best years playing basketball. And again, shout out to Drew and all those guys. Like we was going to war every game, and it was a fun year. And I don't know when it came out, but like we always knew that Coach Gordon and Coach Brown from Meadowbrook was going to come to a game each year. And when it came out that they was going to the Manchester game, it was towards the end of the season. I was looking forward to it because I'm thinking we're having a fun year. Basketball is what I'm going to do. I'm having a great year. It was a couple other games that I did really well in. And we get to the Manchester game, and we ended up beating them by a lot. It was an easy game, but I probably played like 2 minutes. And at that moment, you know, and I think just having that perspective of feeling like I was being treated different, it put me in a situation at a young age where even in today, where I'm at now, I've always had to learn from watching other people. I never had guidance, and I never would just say, you know what, I don't know anything, and I'm going to just sit down and cry. Like, I always learned from observing. I learned body language. I learned, okay, this person's saying this, but they showing me something different. And I remember looking over at Coach Gordon and Coach Brown, looking over at Coach Scott the whole game, and I'm just like, man, there's no reason why I shouldn't be playing. Like, Coach Scott don't think that I should play at the next level. And not that I was mad at him, but I just had that realization that that's what that meant. Because, again, every other game that year, I was in the mix. Even after that, going into the playoffs, I was a huge part of that team, you know. And then even going into the banquet, you know, it kind of was confirmed when Coach Scott gave the speech of the 8th graders going out, and I was one of them. And, you know, and it's not a knock on him. Like, I understand where he's coming from now, but, like, he basically was just saying, like, you had a great 8th grade year. I don't know what the future holds for you, but as far as 8th grade goes, you did what you needed to do for us. And it kind of confirmed for me, like I said, that he didn't really believe that I could play at that next level. But, you know, looking back now, I understand that was only my first year playing organized basketball. So he had to change my jump shot. So to him, like, it makes sense why he might, like, you know, understand with him is like his name on the line.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm also new. He doesn't even really know me. I came in that 1 year. That's the first time he knew me, you know, so.
A funny story before I ask you a question about that was Coach Scott, man, he's probably one of the greatest coaches in Richmond, I would say. I would give him that label for real. Like, if you play under Coach Scott, you learn something.
Absolutely.
And just you bringing up, you know, kind of how he didn't know you. This man asked me one day, I was walking in the hallway, and he asked me, was I going to try out for his team next year? And I was in 8th grade.
8th grade, yeah.
He's like, hey, man, because, again, me being y'all manager.
You was in there with us.
Yeah, he saw me shooting around and stuff. Okay, this kid can play.
Yeah.
We thought I was in 6th grade or 7th grade or something. He's like, hey, man, you going to try out next year? I'm like, Coach Scott, I'm in 8th grade. Wish you had tryouts this year? I said, yeah, and last year. My bad, man. I got so many guys, man. I got so many guys, man. And it was just like, you just confirmed that, like, he did know you and you play on his team.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
and that's Coach Scott.
Yeah, that's Coach Scott.
You could go next year and see him in Food Line, and he would be like, who?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
that was Coach Scott. You know what I mean? He was an older guy, and, like, that's just what came with that. You know what I mean?
But the question I had for you, bro, was now you're at a situation where your coach is almost like Adriana, your peers.
In my eyes, yeah.
In your eyes at that very moment. Yeah. Was that I'm going to show you moment? Did you take that into Meadowbrook, or how did you transition going into high school? Did that affect you going into high school as far as?
It didn't affect me a lot, because at that point, you know, and again, the person I am today, being more self-aware, you realize there's things that's always been there. And one of those things for me that's always been there was you could tell me that something ain't gonna happen, or I could see that you don't believe in me, and yeah, I automatically go into that mode of like, I'm gonna show you whether it happened or not. I'm not gonna give up and think because you telling me it's not gonna happen that it's not gonna happen. But at the same time, going into high school, I understood how important it was to make the Meadowbrook team. And Meadowbrook at that time, prior to us going into high school, they were in the Richmond Times tournament every year. They was playing against the John Marshalls, the Highland Springs. They were playing against the top Richmond teams. And again, growing up across the street from Sean, I had front row seats to all of that. I mean, looking up to Sean and going to his games was the first time I seen Tyrese Rice. Like, I was looking at how important it was to either be on a Bird team or a Meadowbrook team. And the fact that Meadowbrook was my school, I'm like, yo, this is if you can get to that, then you good. So in my mind, it was, even though you don't feel like they think you can do it, let's go into it and see what happens. And I thought I didn't know nothing about like preseason stuff. So I went into it thinking about tryouts and maybe like the couple weeks before that, right? Trey, who you talk about in your story, at that time he was playing for the South Richmond team with Coach Brown and them, and he ended up getting in some trouble and couldn't play no more. And I remember Josh Davis, we were going to the same church at the time, and this is kind of when things changed for me. he said, hey, man, we got to practice or something like today or tomorrow. Like, Trey can't play. Can you play? I can talk to coach for you. And I'm like, yeah. And then at the same time, Doug said the same thing. I guess maybe him and Josh talked. I don't know. Doug lives in our neighborhood as well. And, you know, shout out to Doug for that. But he was also part of that group of people in the neighborhood that one minute he acting like he cool with me, the next minute he not. And that's just what it is. And I remember feeling like I never knew how to take that, you know. But he did help me get a spot on that team. And I remember coming home because we used to ride our bikes all the time. Like you said, we used to go to y'all neighborhood and play basketball. We would go to the park. We at the park, me and the guys from the neighborhood, and I forgot that I told him I was going to play. We had a game that day. So I get home, and this is the summertime. I get home. I turn at the stop sign, and at the point that I could see my driveway, I see the big-ass black Chevy Tahoe. Coach Brown truck.
Big Bad Brown.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh, snap, I'm rushing. And he, you know how Coach Brown do.
Yeah, you doing knucklehead?
Yeah, you know we got a game. I was like, man, my bad. It's the first time I'm meeting him, like outside of seeing him at the Manchester game. So I rush, get my stuff, but I'm still running off. We at the park. Like at the park, I'm a totally different player. Like I'm in my element, you know? Yeah. So we ended up
at the park.
You know what I'm saying? Like at the park, you could say what you want. I'm giving you buckets like once we step on this court. So we end up going to the old U-turn. We played Richmond Metro that night. They had that Richmond Metro team we played was the one that had all the Huguenot guys on.
Yep.
I had another great game, similar to the Carver game. I probably had like 13, maybe 15 points, but it was all just like I was just having fun, like maybe a couple layups. A lot of it was just they didn't know who I was, so they was leaving me open in the corner. I'm like, well, I'm shooting threes, I'm kicking, I'm killing it. They giving it to me too. So after the game, I remember Doug telling me, hey, Coach Brown just pulled me to the side, man, and was like, that's a good pickup. And I know at that point, I'm like, okay, let's do it, you know, let's make it happen. And I ended up finishing the AAU season with them going into, I guess, the preseason stuff with like King's Journey, which King's Journey is like the conditioning part of what we had to do at Meadowbrook. And it wasn't easy, you know, like
it's hard as hell.
A lot of dudes didn't make the team that should have made the team because they couldn't do that.
Yep.
And so we go into that phase of it. And I kind of felt like there was a lot of guys who already felt like they already had a spot. I had a little upper hand because they knew who I was, but I still felt like I had to prove myself because of all the things that I'm dealing with. Even the guys from the neighborhood, like, they are all guys that felt like they should have played, but they didn't have the grades or something else. So, like, it was always that attitude of, like, I should be playing, but, like, they don't like me or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for me, I'm like, I'm not going to cop out like that. Like, I really want to make this team. And I told myself, whatever we'd have to do at preseason workouts, I'm going to do all of it. And that ended up paying off for me, you know. And shout out to Coach Gordon. He was somebody who I felt like always saw the same thing that Coach Still saw, you know. He was somebody who walked on that UVA, and I think he could just point out, like, I was like him. Mm-hmm. And I remember being at the workouts. We was in the weight room, and it was a Monday, and he was like, pulled me to the side, thought I was in trouble. Hey, man, what you doing tonight at 6? I was like, I ain't doing nothing. Hey, man, you come in here, you don't complain, you do a great job, you want it. Come tonight at 6 o'clock and be ready to play. So I'm like, yo, what? So I come back up there. I don't even think I left because there wasn't no way I was getting a ride back up there.
Yeah.
I think I stayed there, and I'm just like, he told me don't tell nobody. So the whole rest of the workout, I'm looking around like, oh, snap, who else going to be there? What is it? Whatever. And it ended up being a private run for the varsity guys. Now, again, at this time, Meadowbrook was a great team prior to us coming into high school. So everybody who was a part of that team before that, they all went D1. Sean, Marty, DJ, all them guys went D1. So when I step into the gym, the whole sideline is full, chair to chair, knee to knee, D1 coaches. You got Charleston Southern, ECU, like a lot of mid-major schools, but like the whole side, I'm in 8th grade still going into 9th grade. And my school that I wanted to go to, just like you, was UNC Chapel Hill. Even though they weren't there, I felt like, yo, if this is what I'm getting exposed to in 8th grade, especially after everything that just happened, I might have just got my chance to start that process. And it was all varsity guys. It was Josh Davis because he already played on the JV team and they was looking to move him up. Drew, which we knew coming into it, Drew was the next guy that was going to play 4 years of varsity. Mm-hmm. And then it was me. Now, after all these things had happened from rec league to even being home or middle school and all the stuff with Coach Scott, like me, Drew, and Josh, and varsity guys with D1 coaches, man, everything changed at that point. And
Yeah, I was
felt
about
like
to
I
ask
gonna
you,
make it
was that a confidence? Like, how much did that do for your confidence?
bro? And the fact that Coach Gordon told me don't tell nobody just made it seem more like, yo,
Then you couldn't even tell me.
yeah,
That's messed up.
I couldn't
dog.
tell anybody, bro.
I'm over there probably doing curls with 10 pounds.
You know what I'm
thinking
saying?
I'm good. I'm going to the crib, Zeke up that joint, about to play with
I'm
varsity.
hooping in there. And again, at that point, Drew was the guy that I looked at. Like, that was I compared to like, okay, what's Drew doing? So the fact that I'm in the same gym in his varsity, I'm like, okay, I'm on that same path. And it was really dope. I didn't do much because, again, I'm still learning the game at this point. But I had confidence going into 9th grade as far as making the team and being a part of Meadowbrook at that time.
So now, this is going into 9th grade. Now 9th grade comes, me and you both make JV, right? So we both take our underdog stories of everybody counting us out, and we both now we finally suited up together.
Yep.
And then we don't play, right?
Yeah.
So now, you know how I said for me it was different because I'm coming off of not ever making a team. So now I made a team.
Yeah.
I'm still on my high. Was there any low for you to make the team and not play that first year?
Yeah, man. And again, a lot of the things that happened in that first year, a lot of people might see it as being something normal, but you got to understand, like, when I talk about not having that guidance or having a village at home, and all of these things took a toll on me, man. So making the 9th grade team, I just remember there were so many guys, man, that didn't make the team. And again, these are guys who could play. Now, were they outplaying me? I don't think so. But they might have had bad grades. They might have got in trouble. Something might have happened that was, in their mind, out of their control. And if that didn't happen, they would have took my spot. And they made sure I knew that. And that was one of those things, in addition to not playing, that you add that on top of everything else. I'm just like, yo, like, y'all don't have that same energy with anybody else that have made this team. So again, I'm not sitting here bitching about it, but I'm noticing it, and I'm just like, I don't understand. And I just remember too, just even going into the stands, and like we had the black dry fits at the time. They had the big yellow joint with I don't know why they made the letters purple, but it was purple. The black dry fits, it was actually pretty tough. And I remember people being like, man, your dry fit's still dry after every game when we would go watch varsity. And again, only saying it to me, and I just felt like I knew I could play, but at the same time, when you're a part of that culture of Meadowbrook, you understand like you're not gonna play much your freshman year. You know, you even talked about the story of us looking down and not being, you know, we had the gold jerseys on, like we knew it, but when the people outside looking in don't know that. And so when you hear that, it just kind of takes a toll. And so 9th grade year for me, you know, it was very frustrating, and I got labeled as having a bad attitude. And, you know, a lot of that came from just dealing with all the stuff that we've been talking about up until this point, man, and just feeling like I felt like I never was being heard. I never felt like I had a chance to prove myself other than what Coach Gordon saw, but Coach Gordon was the varsity coach. Yeah. And we had Coach O for JV, and I love Coach O, but, you know, he labeled me really quick as having a bad attitude, and I could never express why that was or felt like I should have. And so 9th grade year was a little rough. You know, I had one up where, you know, we played Colonial Heights, which that was the game that you almost was guaranteed to get in because you were going to beat them by 50. Yeah. And I remember Josh Davis getting a technical foul, man, and it's at Colonial Heights. Coach O, he walked down the end of the bench because I'm towards the end. I ain't getting in. He walked down to the end. He walked to the beginning of the bench, and then he walks down to the end again. He stops in front of me, but he's still looking that way. He turns at me and says, you could just see it in his eyes, he ain't want to do it. Go get him. So I get in. I'm all over the place. I don't know what's happening, but I end up having like 12 points. And I remember the next day we had film because we always watch film the next day, and I'm hyped. Coach, I had 12. You saw me? Your defense was terrible. I said, God dang, man. And
that was Coach O.
That was Coach O. So I ain't gonna lie to you. That didn't do nothing. I was just like, he just saying what he's supposed to say, you know. I was still hype off the 12, and then we end up moving forward, you know, through the film session. But that was the highlight of my 9th grade year. And you know, outside of that, it was very frustrating. And I did contemplate, like, again, if I was good enough to play at that level, not because I knew I had to wait, like everything else overrided that. People telling me they should have my spot, me not playing, me also not really understanding a lot of things at that level, you know. We talk about the jump stop story where for the longest time, like Coach O, he loved, you know, take it down, the person's foul lane, do a jump stop. And I was just kind of like, I wasn't getting low. I just kind of did that. And like, again, this is my second year now playing organized basketball. So I didn't really articulate it. And nobody was like showing us. Maybe he was showing us when he was talking about it, but it was almost expected you should know how to do it. So it wasn't a detailed thing. And I remember coming to the sideline and Coach Brown being like, hey, man, Coach O said you can't do a damn jump stop. Like, what you mean? I've been doing it. He said, you got to get low, do it, and pass the ball, bounce pass. That's it. It's a jump stop. All right, cool. My next rep, I do it. Coach O is like, about time. And in that moment, I'm just like.
They just expected you to already know it.
He just expected me to know it. And I understand that. But on the other hand, it's like, at what point do you have to take the responsibility to be there to develop players? And I realized then, and even looking back now, that, you know, especially after talking to George and his upbringing, and it's just one of those things where it's just like, man, like we really didn't have anybody showing us the way. You know, even when I talk about Sean, like I looked up to him, but there was many times where he was outside playing with his friends and they were the same age, and I would try to go play with them and they would not let me play. They would kick me off. They'd be mean to me because it's like, get your little ass out of here. And we just never had that dynamic. And so when that situation happened, it kind of dawned on me like, dang, yo, like all you had to do was show me. But I couldn't tell him that. He's the coach. But I just remember, you know, thinking of that.
Bro, it's crazy because I still got our hoodie. I still got our JV hoodie.
For real?
Yeah, it's in the closet.
Man, I wish I kept a lot of that stuff.
Yeah,
man.
bro. I wish I had it out here. I would show the camera, but
yeah,
it's definitely up in the closet, and it's 3X. It's crazy.
3, yeah, that was it back then. 3X was probably too small.
Oh my God, it was ridiculous. But yeah, I still got it, man. Maybe I'll show y'all in another episode or something.
Sure.
But so 9th grade year was crazy for you, and it was crazy for me too. But following that year, bro, now you were captain. Like, you were a captain on that 10th grade team.
Yep.
How was that mentally as far as going from Coach O looking off to saying go get him to now he depends on you?
Yeah, man. And a lot of that came from that team camp we had at Richmond, which was dope. Another fun time for me. We all got to play together. We had 6 guys. Nobody other than us believed in us, and we went in there and we killed it. And we did our thing for JV. And so going into 10th grade, I knew that I was going to get more opportunities, but at the same time, I wasn't sure because you had Devin who was there, who we played the same position, and he actually got moved up. So that was, I ain't gonna lie, that was like a weight off my back because Devin was really good. And, you know, when he got moved up, it kind of made sense for me. And I think he even got moved up in 9th grade. So that happened. I believe Coble got moved up. So a lot of the same things that happened in team camp when it was just 6 of us, going into 10th grade, everything just kind of opened up to say, this is your time. Coach made me a captain. And 10th grade was probably one of my best years playing basketball. And, you know, to kind of backtrack as well, you know, when we're talking about how important basketball truly, like, saved my life. And, you know, I talk about my brother Braxton and, you know, a lot of the stuff that we dealt with at home, in particular, like with my mom and that side of the family, just like, if I didn't attach myself to what we had to do at Meadowbrook, I don't think mentally I would be good right now. You know, and I love my brother. That's like my best friend. And anybody that knows my brother, when you see him, you know, a lot of people try to write him and me off, but they don't understand a lot of the shit that we had to go through.
Absolutely. And
one of the things that changed my life as far as being a part of not only basketball, but being a part of Meadowbrook was the contract that Coach Gordon made us sign. And he made us sign this in 9th grade, and it said, there's a lot of things on there, but the things that stuck out to me was you couldn't have less than a 3.0, you couldn't be late to class, all of that stuff. And I took that very serious because I knew I didn't have the luxury of being cool with people and they was going to give me a second chance. I worked for this opportunity, and that contract, I upheld that. And I remember going into 10th grade, if you had less than a 3.0, because they still, like, they would let some guys slide, we had to go to study hall. You know, because you had to have it by a certain point or you couldn't do it. You couldn't play. And I remember just going into 10th grade, man, and nobody on that JV team other than one person had to go to study hall. And, you know, I look back now and it's like that leadership of me being a captain was a big part of that, you know, and we still was in study hall because it was just that important,
Yeah.
you know. And
To
again,
keep that up.
to keep that up, and again, that saved my life because there was a lot of times, you know, growing up in our culture and even just going to Meadowbrook, you know, people gonna test you, man, and people gonna try to get you out of your character. And again, I'm somebody who's always been in tune with my emotions, and there's been a lot of situations where people might have even looked at me as like, oh, he a bitch ass nigga or whatever, and like they don't understand that I didn't have the luxury to go fuck up and say, you know what, this person was testing me. So that changed my life in the sense of I was focused. I didn't let nothing get me off of that. If you want to call me whatever because you think that, that's cool. And so 10th grade for me was a life-changing year because I really had to live it, you know. In 9th grade, you can be mad and kind of say, you know, whatever. But in 10th grade, when you got other guys coming in and looking at you, you want to uphold that. And, you know, I thank Coach Gordon to this day for doing that because it carried on to every other year of my high school career. And, you know, growing up, people tell you all the time, you got to have good grades to go to school, all that stuff. But as a basketball player, you don't think about that as much. But that contract, when they say you can't do this if you don't do it, it really changed everything.
Your 10th grade year, you lived it, and it almost got cut short.
Yeah.
You know, over break, y'all got into a crazy car accident, and a lot of people didn't understand what happened.
Yeah.
So kind of walk us through that, like where you were on a high, and it really could have been over.
We were going into Christmas break, and we was actually, because every year we would play in the Fort Lee Christmas tournament, and thankfully we still were able to. We ended up winning the championship. Shout out to Brandon. He led us to that. And it was the first day of Christmas break. And my brother at the time was like one of the only people in our group that could drive. So he had the responsibility to take everybody home, come get us and take us home from practice. My mom and dad, she had a Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo. I remember that was her favorite car. She loved that Jeep. But my dad just bought her a new car, and they just paid off the Jeep. They gave it to my brother. They just took it to the shop and got everything fixed. First day of Christmas break, he comes and get us. Starting five plus the sixth man and like one other person. Like anybody who played on that team was in that car. And we were on the way to take Jordan home because he lived off of Hopkins where the Wendy's at, going down that road. And I had the PSP at the time. I'm listening to my music. And all I remember was Braxton just saying like, man, I don't give a fuck this shit. And he tries to like jokingly like twist the wheel. The car goes out of control because there's a lot of motherfuckers in this bitch. And it's a Jeep. It's a lady's yard. And where the mailbox is when you have a house, there's the little sewage area with the little ditch in the front. We going towards that. The car is skirting towards that. I ended up blacking out. By the time I come conscious, I'm upside down. She had these boulders in her driveway, not like huge boulders, but like big enough to where she could put a lot of them in line the thing. There's one literally this far away from my face, and I'm upside down, and it's through the glass. I'm literally like looking at it. I can't even tell how close it is. That's how close it is. It's just right here. And I'm just screaming, what the fuck? Like 30 times, bro. Everybody else getting out. Aaron Carter's with us. He thinking the car gonna blow up. That man, he ran down the street fast as he could. Jordan ended up hurting his his shoulder. Rooney is with us.
Y'all got hurt pretty bad. Or some players got hurt pretty bad.
And I got my seatbelt on. I'm screaming, so I got to take my seatbelt off. I crawl out. It was bad, man. And, you know, shit happens, man. But that day, everything changed for my brother, too. Because he was the one driving. I know he felt bad. Everything that happened with my mom giving him the car and everything. And, like, the way our family was at home, like, my mom held things over us. So we gave you the car. You need to make sure, da-da-da-da. My mom cared a lot about what people thought, too. And so this made our family look bad. And so when she pulled up, rightfully so, you know, she was upset. She was crying, all of that stuff. You know, and I hate to even say this, man, but, like, she didn't even check to see if we was okay.
Yeah, I already say, was it more of a, I'm upset about
She was upset about the
car and how we going to look?
She was upset about the car. And
Third is if y'all okay or not.
She didn't ask us if we was okay. And I'm going to just be honest. That was the truth. And I remember her being very upset about the car because, again, they just paid it off and so she cared a lot about that. And my brother hasn't been the same since because she blamed him, you know, for that day. And, again, he has to take accountability for that. But at the same time, your son is still alive. Everybody that was involved is still alive. And that took a toll on my brother that I don't think he ever bounced back from. And again, he didn't play. I mean, he played football a little bit. He played rec league growing up, but he didn't play for the team. He didn't have the contract. He didn't have the things that I attached myself to. And he was at home dealing with a lot of shit, you know. And at an early age, like I said, when that happened, it changed everything forever. It's in terms of that relationship, because the same people that I thought was my friends that really won't, it was the same thing for him. So we had nowhere to really go and let that out. So it was a tough situation, and I'm thankful that, you know, we made it out of that, but a lot of things changed after that.
There was another this is more on the lighter side, but there was another low moment for you your 10th grade year. I could set the scene for everybody. So
Man,
we in the locker room. I was on varsity at the time. We were pretty decent. We were decent, I would say. We weren't very, very good. We weren't very, very bad either. It was like in the middle of the pack. Yeah. I think we definitely underachieved for the talent we had. But anyways, this was a particular day that we both won at the same time.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen that much, is what I would say.
For sure.
It was a home game, so we in the locker room, we celebrating, and it's like one of those, like, people are getting dressed, like, you're getting dressed, getting ready to go home. I don't know if it was a Friday night. You could probably remind me. Was it a weekend?
It definitely was. I mean, if it wasn't Friday, it had to be Thursday, but it probably was Friday.
Okay, well, it felt like we could have got into something. Not even into something. We going to McDonald's, hanging out.
Yep.
And we in the locker room, and Stat comes back in, and he's like, "Excuse me, fellas." He's just trying to get through. He really just trying to get through, get his stuff. He had forgot some that he needed, and and PJ, shout out to PJ, man. PJ, that was our best player that year.
Yeah.
He go, what the hell are you doing? And Mike, shout out Mike at the time. Mike Williams was a big diesel football player, bro, who just happened to play basketball.
Terry Crews.
Terry Crews. He just wanted to rebound that much. He just wanted to rebound and outlet that hard as a bit.
Yeah.
So PJ go, what the hell are you doing? So all the attention goes on you.
Yep.
And literally you are like, your back is to the door.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to get in your locker, bro. You say, excuse me, and all that. And, you know, they grabbed you. They kind of like was roughing you up a little bit. And then they happened to like kind of like see your underwear was sticking out a little bit. So Mike grabbed them joints, gave you a wedgie, right? And y'all, when I say this won't no normal wedgie, like this won't no like, he had Stat up. Like, he was that strong where he's, like, literally trying to get away.
It was them draws that, like, it wasn't no boxer brief. It was them joints from Walmart that, like, the seams was just rough.
And, bro, it had the ridges in them.
Yeah.
And they ended up ripping this man draws. And, you know, the goal was they was trying to put his draws over top of his head.
Yeah.
Like, and it wasn't those type of draws where it was stretchy or nothing. Like, they really was trying to get them rigged draws over this man's head. And, you know, that put me in a tough situation because this was my guy, and I'm sitting there like, yo, he's really upset. He's really mad.
Yeah.
But for us, it was all jokes. But for you really went through something that night. And I just want you to talk about that a little bit. Because again, a lot of people that was in there laughing don't really know what you had to actually go through that day.
Yeah. So again, you know, dealing with the at-home situation, now again, like with my dad, right? My dad was cool, but he was gone a lot because he was over the road. So anytime my dad was around, it was cool. But a lot of stuff we had to deal with at home with my mom affected me. Not having the real friendships at home affected me. And then just dealing with the normal doubt of like being in school with people your age at that age and everybody just kind of wanting up in everybody. So in that situation, man, I just didn't understand why me, you know. I understand y'all are excited, y'all want to joke around, but to me, y'all took it a little too far. And when all of that happened, you know, again, I was labeled as having a bad attitude, and this honestly didn't help. But nobody knew all the stuff that was going through my head that I was dealing with that we've already talked about at this point. And so when I get up, I just remember being really mad. I remember seeing AJ Bazell in the corner laughing the most, and I wanted to beat his ass, but I remembered that contract, and I felt like if I would have did something, even though they did those things, I would have got kicked off the team, and I wouldn't have been able to play basketball because of that. And that made me even more mad because now I had to look like a fool because I can't really do what I want to do because I'm scared that I'm going to lose my opportunity and I can't say nothing after the fact. So I'm thinking ahead, right? I remember walking past the locker, walking out of the locker room, and y'all, the coach's office was right before you hit that left. And I remember them looking because they didn't even really know what was going on. And I just remember seeing Coach Brown's face, and he was just kind of like, why are you going so crazy for? Because everybody was just happy. So I didn't care. I just kept walking. And when I get out to the gym floor, everybody's waiting. My mom's there waiting, and she sees that I'm upset, and I'm still mad. I'm yelling. I'm like, man, that's fucked up. Why they do that? And she's like, what are you talking about? So I tell her what happens, and I'm like, I'm showing her and shit, and yeah.
Man, that's a laugh, bro, but your jaws is ripped, bro.
Yeah, bro, they was done. I probably should have just threw them away and walked home with my
freeballed
them. But I remember my mom, her response. Now, mind you, my mom wasn't in the locker room. She doesn't know what happened. All she knows is what I told her. And her response was, stop being so sensitive. They were just joking with you. And I'm just like, all right, if that's how you see it, because I knew my mom cared about what people thought. And that was really where that came from. But I'm truly upset. Like, this shit really got me fucked up, because now if I felt like I could go in there and beat AJ ass, I might have been okay with it. But my mom was the type of person that if I would have did that and got kicked off the team, I would have been in more trouble with my mom just because of that.
Mm-hmm.
So for her to respond that way to me was just like, I can't win. Everybody want to chalk it up to I'm being sensitive all the time, and it's just like, what would y'all have done?
Yep.
And so that was another one of those situations, man, that just, again, these are guys who on any given day act like they was cool with me.
Yeah. So now you really, again, me and you spoke about this off air, but that's what you knew as a friend.
Yeah.
And that was the opposite of what a friend was, but that's what you knew as a friend, because the people in the neighborhood treat you like that.
Yep.
People in school treat you like that. You didn't chalk it up and be like, hey, like, these really aren't my friends. You're thinking like, okay, this is how friendships goes.
It became normal because I said, you know what, maybe because I was just born this way, they supposed to treat me this way. Because again, I saw that they didn't treat their other friends like that.
Absolutely.
Doug and all those guys, they didn't treat each other like that. They only treated me and my brother like that.
Yeah.
But I just said, if that's how it is, that's how it is, because my mom was also supporting that a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
And again, going back to what you've expressed so far, bro, like, mentally, bro, you could be mentally shot right now. Like,
if I didn't love basketball as much as I did, yeah.
So then what I'm bringing that up because, again, you on this roller coaster. Mm-hmm. The 11th grade year, it was a dip.
Yep.
How did you bounce back from going from captain to now you may not even make the team? Yeah.
So shout out to my dad, man. He always before we could be able to work legally, my dad had a side business. He did lawns. That was how we made our money. But going into 11th grade, we were able to get an actual job. And my dad told us, and I don't think he realized it came off as being negative, but as somebody who wanted to make it to the league, this sounded negative. And he said, basketball ain't forever, you need to go get a job. Now, the shit I'm on right now, I understand where he's coming from, but we got to change that conversation to basketball ain't forever, but it's right now. And there's so much you can learn in life that can give you an advantage. Let's be 150% in here and do it there. Mm-hmm. But at that time, it's like, go get a job. So not only am I transitioning from JV to varsity, I'm working all summer. And I also don't understand how to work on my game. Again, when we had George here, we talked about that we never had anybody show us that. So I'm also picking up habits of like just working and eating and chilling and playing video games, whatever. So going into 11th grade year, I knew I wasn't prepared, but I knew I gave my all to be a part of this program. And at that same time, Coach Brown was encouraging us to do a different sport. He said you could either play volleyball or you could play cross country. Everybody went to play volleyball. He told me I needed to be in better shape. So I took that as, let me listen to him because I want to be a part of this, and I went and did cross country. And I took cross country very seriously. I lost weight. I got in great shape, and it was amazing. And I still was working and going to school and everything else. So I say that to say this as well. A lot of people didn't have to deal with real life shit like that at that age. And I'm grateful for it now. But at that time, it was a struggle because when you look at everybody else who didn't have to worry about that, but they looking at it like they can just coast through life, and I'm dealing with that, and I still got to meet the same standard as them to make that team, it hit a little bit harder when I did get cut. And at the same time that I got cut, one of everybody's good friend and Hooper, Tim, got cut the same day. And I just remember, at the time, Josh was my right-hand man, and he didn't make the team his 9th grade year. And we talked about this earlier today. It's like, when I got cut, it was so much tension because everybody else knew already. I ain't talked to nobody said nothing to me. Nobody did anything. And I ain't mad at them for doing that, but I just remember feeling lonely like that, And one of the few times that my mom was supposed to come get me was that day. She never really – I used to ride home with Josh from practice, and I remember walking home, and we used to have a shortcut to get home. I took the long way, and I remember crying the whole way home, and two things was going through my mind. What is my mom going to say, and is she going to think I did something wrong? And I was thinking, what am I going to do now? Because I still got to come back to school, and my whole identity at this point, to me, is basketball. It's the only thing that's keeping me going. It's the contract. It's the camaraderie, all of that. It's gone. What am I going to do now? I get home. My mom went to bat for me. When she see me, I'm crying. Why you crying? I thought you was at practice. What happened? They cut me. She immediately gets on the phone. She calls Coach Brown. Coach Brown probably knew that was going to happen. And, she basically said he did everything y'all told him to do. Why y'all cut him? And Coach Brown pretty much just says what we had to do. He's just not ready for this level and blah, blah, blah. And while I understand where he's coming from, when I look back now, anybody that's has a job as a coach, you have a responsibility to develop your players as people and as players. Those coaches didn't do that for us. So everything that he was saying and why I was getting cut made sense on paper, but we all knew they weren't doing the things that George talked about he had when he was growing up. And for me, I knew that then. But I said, you know what? If that's what y'all want to do, y'all can do that. And at that point, everything kind of changed for me, and I felt so lonely, bro. Like, it really was bad. Like, I really didn't know who was for me, who was against me. I felt like everybody was against me. And
do you think if Coach Gordon was still there, you would have been on that team?
Absolutely. The things that Coach Gordon spoke into my life and the things that he showed without even telling me, all the things that I even talked about, it was even more stuff than that. I mean, I remember even being on JV still and just being around to watch varsity open runs and him putting me on his team when they was playing. Like, it was little stuff like that.
He saw something. He saw what Coach Steele saw in you.
Yeah.
He saw what George saw in you.
Yeah.
It just was unfortunate that those three people that did see that spark in you, it was only for a short period of time that they were able to impact your life. But you did take a lot from all three of them, which was good. And it kept you going and keeps you here today because you remember those people who helped you. And I said that in a couple podcasts before. You remember those people who helped you through those dark times. And when you're in dark places now, you remember those people for sure. Like, those are the people that's in the forefront of your mind. So that was great that you were able to meet those people, even though it was a short period of time. And I tried to tell my players last year when I was coaching, which is why I can't wait to coach again because of the fact that exactly what you said, bro. I used to go in there and be like, yo, I'm not really just teaching y'all how to play basketball, man. I'm teaching how to go through life.
Yeah.
And I had a little breakdown with them the last game of the season when we lost. And it was emotional because I'm like, yo, y'all don't understand that if y'all go to that dark place, I'm trying to help y'all to not go there. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and that's why we here right now. It's a
slap in the face. Yeah, and it was a slap in the face because they weren't kind of understanding, which they're kids, so it's like whatever. But we didn't even have people trying to even teach us about the game of life. They was like, how can you help us win basketball games?
For sure.
And I think that's why we were, a lot of our peers that went to Meadowbrook, we were affected about that because what can you all do for me? And it wasn't, how can I help you? Because we all had to search for our own colleges.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, but after you got cut 11th grade, man, you went home, your mom went to bat for you, and then you made an immediate switch, and you went to community high school.
Yeah.
And, at the time, outside looking in, we looked at community players a certain way, community people a certain way. It was like kind of like a reject school.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? I didn't feel like that towards them, but that was the community's.
Yeah, I felt like that. I mean, I didn't feel like that as much as some other people, but if you went to Meadowbrook, that was kind of how you looked at it.
But you know why I didn't feel like that? And this is just maybe just me, is because I knew that those dudes can hoop.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
I was surprised, bro. I mean, I don't think you remember, bro, but when I was trying to try out for varsity, when I was trying out for varsity in 7th grade, bro, it was some good players, bro, that they picked me over. Like, it was always that, damn, are you going to make it over Kayvon? Remember Kayvon,
Yep.
Patrick?
Yep.
Those guys were upperclassmen, bro. So I remember those guys, and they all went to community.
Yep.
So it wasn't like I was, like, dissing them or nothing,
For
but
sure.
I knew that they could hoop. So I didn't really look at them as rejects. And David Copeland, man, rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
David Cope, man, he always showed me respect, bro. And he was one of the best hoopers 804 ever seen.
Yeah.
So he played for them and embraced them. So it wasn't like I was looking at anybody as rejects. But again, you went there, right? Mm-hmm. What was your mindset going into that type of environment, and how did it play out? I know you got some stories about the first time you met Cope. How was that?
Yeah. First of all, man, rest in peace to David Copeland, man, the Martian. That was a guy that he respected the game so much that if he saw that you respected the game, you made each other better. And one of the things that community did for me was it made me not care as much. You know, I was labeled sensitive in my emotions, all of this crazy shit. And going into community, we saw people at community as rejects. For people who don't know, Chesterfield Community is an alternative school. So if you're not there for sports, you got kicked out of your home school for academics and they sent you there. And then if you played sports, you probably got cut from your home team and you went there. I went there specifically for basketball. I went the second semester of 11th grade year. I got out of there, and immediately going in there, I got a chance to play half a year with Cope and Patrick and them on their last year. And the chip that they had on their shoulder and the energy that they brought, it really tapped into all of those times where I was like, I'm going to show you. Like, I had to really tap into that because I didn't go in there on no pussy shit. I came in there like, bro, like, all right. I remember the first practice, Cope came down. I wasn't even guarding him. He came down, got a bucket. This ain't Meadowbrook. And I had and a lot of dudes will fold even in that because Cope was really a hooper.
Oh, yeah.
And he giving you that energy. And I just remember me being like, okay, cool. This is where we at with it. I like this. And shout out to all the teachers and the staff at community as well. Everything about that school was what I needed. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy to me that we did have the perception of community that we did because everybody at Meadowbrook had an ego. And if I'm keeping it 1,000, we ain't really had no reason to have no ego.
Yeah.
Because if I look at where a lot of those guys are today, I'm not trading my life with any of them dudes. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those dudes was ahead of me before we got there. And I go to community and everything changes. I remember coming into that, again, shout out to Coach Gordon for that contract. The guidance counselor sat me down and she said, yo, we are excited for you to be here because you're making our school look good. Mm. And I had so many teachers embrace me just off of that. And then on top of that, the basketball team, we was battling on that floor and we was coming at each other, but when we was off that floor, we all understood. Everybody see us as rejects. We gonna stick together. And there was a couple guys even back at Meadowbrook when they found out I made that move that was talking down on me. So I truly embraced that I'm a reject too, because I've always felt like I was different. Yeah. And so the whole journey of community was dope, you know, but in the back of
you even got a chance to play against Meadowbrook.
Yeah, we played them in summer league and we ended up winning.
Yep.
I hit the go-ahead bucket there as well. Not even the go-ahead bucket, but the dagger. It was a 3. I probably only had 5 points that game, and that 3 was one of the ones that put the dagger in them. And
how was that? Was that a big, like,
it was huge, man, because I remember we had Slim on our team. You remember Slim? Tall, dark-skinned, skinny guy.
On
community?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember before that game, because I'm the type of dude, I don't care if I score 30 or if I score 3. Everybody need to mentally be engaged in this game so we can win. And I remember pulling him to me before the game. I said, listen, bro, because he used to always get called for fouls because he wanted to block shit. I said, bro, I don't give a fuck.
I remember him being very athletic.
Very athletic, tall dude. I mean, he's like 6'11", but he's athletic. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. I said, bro, I don't care if you foul out in the first 2 minutes. Block everything coming. He went crazy, and they won't call it no fouls. He was blocking everything. Jahan was going off. We had a great game, and we ended up winning, and that was great for me. Just because of being in front of Coach Brown again and feeling like the reject, and now I got this new identity. And when we talk about that lack of village, like being at community, I felt like that changed a little bit, you know. And I had some things too that I had to deal with them because I was still dealing with all that other stuff, but for the most part, they embraced me, and you know, my grades were amazing. I think I graduated like number 4 in the class. I got National Honor Society. Scholar Athlete of the Year, put me in the newspaper. They did a pep rally for me. It was all love, man. And it was all great, but in the back of my mind, I didn't know what my basketball future looked like.
Did you find your identity though at community?
I say I did. I
Nice.
say that was the start of it for sure.
Nice.
That was the start of me saying, I don't give a fuck what none of y'all talking about. This what type of shit I'm on. Because
So was it kind of like, did you embrace a villain role?
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's pretty dope. I like that.
That's where I was at with it because, again, even at Meadowbrook, I was labeled as having a bad attitude. So
Yeah.
now being that community, it's like having a bad attitude, it come with it. Every player has got that checked off, you know?
And the reason I say I like that, bro, is because I vividly remember. I know I didn't play because I was at Evangel at the time, and our stories are kind of similar about leaving Meadowbrook our junior year. So just having that breath of fresh air kind of helped you out mentally because all we knew was Meadowbrook before then. But I remember y'all winning and you were hyped, bro. And a lot of people, again, I wasn't playing, so I'm just walking around.
A lot of people was mad.
They were mad, bro. Yeah. And I was just shaking my head like, yo, this is how it's supposed to be because to them dudes, it's like, man, we just playing against community. You was like, no, I got something to prove.
And dudes was mad at me for being so happy about the win.
And it's crazy because when I translate that to life, bro, is you got to approach life like that, man.
Yeah.
Like you got to approach life with always having something to prove, bro, because when you don't and you sit back and get comfortable, some of the things that you think isn't a big deal are huge deals.
Yeah.
And the things that you think that you're supposed to care about don't mean nothing.
Don't mean nothing.
And that for you was more than the game, bro. That was more. It was a summer league game, and it was more than a game for you, bro.
And it was at Meadowbrook.
At Meadowbrook, and it was all the people who just told you that you couldn't be nothing.
And then when I did it, it still was just like, who are you to think you can be happy about that?
Exactly. So, that's the crazy world that we were living in then. We still live in that world today, but it's just like, wow, to even sit back and, that's why some of these movies, when there is a villain, people can attach to them because they know exactly how that feels.
For sure.
So yeah, you finish up a community, great academic and on the court career, athletic career as well at community, bro. To have a bounce back like you did, again, because a lot of people, that's a dark space that you went into when you walked home the long way, bro. Yeah. And some people and a lot of people don't make it out. So for you to bounce back was huge, but now you don't know what your college future is going to look like. You get an opportunity to go to EMU, try to help me get in. And I want to thank you again, bro, for that because you was going to bat for me, man. Like you would call me every day with dude on the phone, like, what we got to do to get you in, blah, blah, blah. And of course, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get in, but you get the opportunity to go to EMU, but now you have to try to walk on. So now, again, that roller coaster is still on the tracks, but it's a long roller coaster with a lot of hills, ups and downs. So this is another down that you try to make a come up for. Explain how that ride was at EMU.
Yeah, man. Going into EMU, I was there really because my mom told me I needed to go to college. I didn't get into JMU. There was probably 6 or 7 teachers and staff at community that all went to JMU. They all wrote handwritten letters to try to get me in to the dean, the president, everybody, and it just didn't work out. And my coach was telling me that EMU could be an option and I could try to walk on. And going into it, I wasn't really thinking about, at this point, I'm not thinking I'm going to the NBA or nothing like that. I'm just thinking about my cousins at JMU. Let me go here for school and just do what they're telling me to do so my mom can kind of think I'm doing what I need to do. And I'm going to try to walk on and try to attach myself to basketball to kind of get through that. And coming into EMU, man, I came in behind the 8 ball just because of that. And at this point, you don't really expect people to. When you're talking college basketball at any level, you kind of know who's playing, you know who's coming in, you know who's recruited, whatever. So I come in and I'm not recruited or anything, but I remember we had an open gym and I'm playing and I'm just doing me. I hit a few threes. I remember everybody looking at me like, who is this dude? And that was the same time I met George. And me and George connected through a mutual friend just off of the fact that we was from Richmond and we cut from the same cloth. So we was a lock just from that. And going into EMU, I think anybody going to college your first year, you learn a lot about yourself because you're now around so many different people that come from different cultures, and it's not just about what you think life is. And that was a little bit of a struggle. But again, I'm focused on basketball. I'm trying to walk on. EMU just comes off an Elite 8 year. George is going into his senior year. They're looking to kill it this year. And I honestly, was thankful because even though we had like 22 guys that year and I tried to walk on, Coach Dean allowed everybody to be a part of that.
Nice.
And I got all the gear. I got all the shoes, everything. And
yeah, you even shot me some gear that year.
Yep, I got you some gear, and it was dope. But at the same time, I felt like I felt in ninth grade again because I'm like, I ain't just okay with this.
Yeah,
I really am trying to play, but I wasn't prepared either. Like, I mean, I remember in practices, the court is bigger. I remember I'm cramping up and suicides and like dumb shit. Like I was trash. But at the same time, when things changed for me was when I was going to class and I saw George in the gym working out every day. He's in season, so I say, look, not after the season. I didn't ask him. I said, hey, can I work out with you? He said, wait till after the season. So we fast forward to the end of his season. We start putting the work in, and you know, at this point, a lot of the guys on EMU team, they're treating me like the guys in the neighborhood. Like, bro, who are you to do this? A lot of guys was mad that George was only inviting me to workouts because it's like George was that guy, but who am I? And why is he like you so much? And just all of those same little stupid shit. And again, when I look at where those guys are at today, it makes sense why they felt like that thing because I wouldn't trade my life with any of them, not one.
Yep.
And George saw something in me that Coach Still saw, that Coach Gordon saw, and all of these things that I look back now and I see. And this was the first time in my life because we put a lot of work in. It wasn't like George was just taking it easy. He taught me a lot of things about life. And one of the things that he made me understand was, one, you got to be a student of the game, which translates to being a student of life. And what that means is that you have to be at a level where you need to understand who's at the top of this and what do they do. If you're not at least doing that, you can't talk about what you want to do or how you want to be. And for him seeing how much I took that serious didn't matter that I was trying to walk on. Everybody else cared about that. He just saw I'm doing what he's doing, and he's better than all these dudes.
Yep.
So he embraced that, and I saw a lot. Like I said, at this point, I've been on my own since 18 at this point. My parents, my dad told us from day one, like, and it sounds bad, but he's like, when the kids get 18, I'm out. Like I said, he didn't have a team player. He knew he was there because he wanted to be responsible and take care of his kids. He didn't have his dad. And so when it actually happened was when I went to college. And so I was dealing with a lot of stuff at home with them being divorced and not really being able to talk to them about this journey. And so George was that for me, you know. And at this point in my life, I'm having to learn from just observing. Okay, Braxton, you fucked up here. I ain't doing that. Okay, all these guys that did this, they messed up. That's how I'm learning life. And I realized a lot of these guys at EMU didn't never have to deal with that. They still was dependent on their parents. They still had all these other things that they could enjoy college life. I was still doing all the same shit I was doing before.
Working, all that stuff.
Working and everything, and I'm trying to get a spot, and they hating on me. And one of the things, you know, to really just encompass the whole experience of what George did for me and how it changed my life was this was the first time that he made me realize that what matters in life is the work. You can be cool. You can have all the girls. You can be more popular. You can be a little bit ahead, whatever. But if you work hard enough, can't nobody tell you what you can't do, no matter how it looks today. And from me observing, putting those two and two together, everybody that hated on me at EMU, the way I looked at it was, you're comfortable, and I see where you're comfortable. So you might be at notch 10 and I'm at notch 3 right now, but I see you comfortable at 10.
Yep.
And the things that I learned from George being a student of the game made me realize it's just a matter of time before I get to notch 11 and you going to think because you were so far ahead that you can slow down. I'm going to keep going. And I take that with me everywhere in my life at this point, and that's what was so special about that relationship with George, even though the basketball stuff at EMU didn't work out and I dropped out after 2 years and all of the bullshit that I had to deal with that. I took that with me, and it has shown over the course of 10 years at this point that I appreciate him so much for that.
Yeah, the joy is in the journey for sure.
Yeah.
That's not just a saying for no reason. It's really true.
Yeah.
Even what we're doing now, you know, we have conversations all the time like, damn, man, we stress out over this, but this is the joyful part. You know what I mean? But I wanted to ask you, was that during that time that was, you know, you was going through that at EMU, was that the birth of Stat?
It was, but I didn't know it yet.
Okay.
You know, so when George was doing all these things, I just kept asking myself, why is he doing this? He don't bro, he came off an Elite 8 run. it's his senior year. He's moving on with his life, but he's still helping me out. He's being a life coach for me and a basketball trainer.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we understand now after having him here on the podcast why he did it, just because of the principle. But at that time, I didn't understand why he did that for me. And at the same time, my whole life, people have wrote me off just for the littlest things.
Mm.
Oh, you act like this, I ain't gonna mess with you. Oh, you can't even play like this. My mom, why don't you jump high like this person? Everybody comparing me and saying you not doing it like everybody else, so we gonna write you off. And George said, nah, bro, I see exactly who you are, and I'm gonna bring the best of you out. Because I already know it's there. It ain't about me giving you anything. It's already there. And so I go into a dark space after all this because it doesn't work out for me. Mm-hmm. I drop out after 2 years. I tell a story about how I go home and I'm working again at Martin's because at this point, I'm still paying all my own bills, but I'm being in school, so I didn't even have enough to pay. I was just paying enough for them to get off my back. And so my credit is going down. All these things are happening to me while I'm trying to go to college and do all these things. My mom is telling me that she doesn't even want me to drop out because she's thinking about what other people are going to think. She's saying I can't even go stay with her. My dad dealing with the divorce. He moves to Ohio. I didn't even talk to my brother for like 3 years. Don't even know where he's at. And so I'm just like, I don't know what to do. And after that year, I drop out. After 2 years, I end up going home. And I see Miss Drury, who was my history teacher at Community. She's like a mom to me still to this day. And the disappointment on her face it was like September, and I'm ringing up her groceries, and she's asking me, like, why are you not in school? And I'm having to tell her I dropped out, and the disappointment on her face because, again, I'm Scholar Athlete of the Year. She wrote letters into JMU to get me in. I got like 4 or 5 scholarships that they brought me up to the podium at VCU because of, like, it was just, that wasn't supposed to happen. And the disappointment in her face, it really hit me. And I went into a dark space, man. I didn't think about basketball, to talk about basketball. I didn't even want to be alive at that point in my life. And this was probably a 2-3 year span. And again, you talk about that dark space.
Yeah.
This is why we're here doing what we're doing, because I understand, I don't care if you make it to the NBA or if you don't make it anywhere. Up until you have that realization, you think you're going to make it. And when it doesn't happen as an athlete, you go into a dark space. And a lot of people don't make it out, and we don't understand that all the things that we learned from the game that we loved helps us in real life and gives us an advantage. And that was what I had to do. And thank God for the dream of stat, because that was what kind of pushed through to get me through that dark space. And again, why we're here today, because I know how hard it is to be in that dark space and try to find that hope.
And you know what's so unfortunate about the teacher that was disappointing in you? We are so brainwashed growing up that we think that college is the answer.
Yeah.
That just kind of baffles me at this point now, because knowing, of course, what we know now and what you needed to hear from her at that moment was, how can I help you still bring the best out of who you are?
Yeah.
College, 9 times out of 10, doesn't bring you that.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Her being a teacher and all the things, like, that was really important to her. Like, you not doing that, what are you going to do? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that sucks because even, you know, what Coach Dean said to you about you can't do anything without a degree is false.
Yeah.
That's not true. Yeah. That's not a true statement. What he said, you can't do anything with, that's not a true statement. Yeah. So just hearing that now, man, I sit back and be like, damn, because I thought about dropping out too. I said that in my origin story. I called my mom. I was ready to come home.
Yeah.
And what you need to hear from people, we don't hear from people when you decide to make that a decision for yourself.
Yeah.
And I know, again, that put you in a dark space, and you thankfully were able to get out. And what came next for you was the biggest blessing of them all.
Yeah.
Without the college degree.
Oh, for sure. And that's a great point that you made too. You know, getting into the next phase is like, Miss Drury now, like I said, she's still like a mom to me to this day. And I thank God for all those times that I tapped into, I'm going to show you, when people said things. Because when she did that, I went into that mode.
Yep.
And she reaches out to me multiple times when she sees me on Facebook or just out of the blue, she's very proud of me. And like you just said, we needed to hear more things that could bring the best out of us. She didn't tell me those things.
Yeah.
I figured it out.
Yep.
And now that I'm living in that now, she's very proud of me.
Yes.
And I still didn't go back and go to school.
Yep. And that's a good thing that you just touched on, bro, because that's what I stand for, bro. And y'all see me wearing this Deuce gear, man. Shout out Deuce brand.
Yeah.
Because their story is underdog mentality as well.
Yeah.
And when you have these people that's telling you can't do this, you can't be this, especially when it comes with something that they think that you need to have,
Yeah.
you don't even know how special I am at that point.
Yep.
It's kind of like a slap in the face.
Yep.
But you channel it, I channel it the same way. I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
Right? And that's that underdog mentality, bro. And we've been facing that our whole lives.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, tapping into the next phase, bro, that's the biggest blessing of your life. Mm-hmm. How did that transition from hearing her say that day? What lit that fire? And then what happens next is that blessing.
So, after that happened and after being in that space for a little bit, I started to get closer with God, and I started to take the eyes off of the things that I didn't think mattered anymore. Chasing girls, making money, going out to the club, all these things that was masking the problem. And I took out a piece of paper and I wrote down what did I want my life to look like and what did I want to do. And one of the first things that I wrote down was I wanted to be a George for somebody else. And what that meant at that time, I didn't know, but I just knew I wanted to do the same thing that he did for me, and that was the hope that I attached myself to. And I ended up meeting a friend who was working at the YMCA, and she was working after school with like the young kids, and they were short staffed, and she kept asking me if I wanted to work there because I needed extra money. And she liked me or whatever, and like she thought it'd be dope that I worked there. And after about a month of telling her no, this one day we in the car and she asked me again, and when I said no, her immediate response was, well, you could coach. And at that moment, I felt like God spoke through her, man, and I paused for like a good minute, and I was just like, God is telling me to move, because at this point, I've written everything down on that piece of paper. I told her, I didn't tell her I wanted to be a George, but I was having that conversation of like everything we're saying now, man, we was working out, even though it didn't work out, like George did this, George, like I want to do that for someone else. And so her saying that I could do that to coach, she saw I could affect those kids, and like that was the start of it. And like I started working there with the intention of only being able to get a free membership so I can coach. And when I started coaching, it's the YMCA league. Like we grew up playing rec league, and while that's not the best league, to me, the YMCA is like a step below that. Like if you play in the YMCA, your parents just want you to be active. But I think the blessing that was for me was I didn't go into it looking like that. I went into it looking at them the same way that, the so-called friends in the neighborhood looked at me, or the guys at the school. I felt like those kids were being labeled that. And I felt like I was the only person at that moment who could help change, because there was nobody pushing them to be great, and they didn't understand because they were so young. They just thought they were doing what they were supposed to do too. There were guys in that YMCA league who thought they were going to the NBA just because of the misunderstanding of that, Mm-hmm. And that's what opened me up to doing basketball training, and that was where STAT came from. I'm a huge fan of A$AP Rocky's ASAP, which means always strive and prosper, and I wanted something like that. And so when I started coming up with the name for that, I just kept saying always strive and prosper and saying, what did George do for me? And I just kept asking myself that and writing down different stuff, and it just led to it coming to strive to achieve together, because that's what George did. Strive to achieve together means George went through some shit, and now after reading the book, it makes a lot more sense to me even now that George went through a lot of things, good and bad, that allowed him to see me for who I was and say, this kid needs help. And because of that, we related, and now I use that with my story, and now I'm going to relate to these kids that George probably could never reach. Mm-hmm. That's strive to achieve together right there, and it clicked. And so I started doing coaching, and I started training, and it was super dope, because when I was training at the YMCA, you can't like reserve a space in the gym or anything, but they appreciated me so much. I invited the whole YMCA league to work out, and I was doing it like 2 days a week. And I had anybody who played, even outside of the team that I coach, if you played in the YMCA league, you could come work out. And the guy Stanley, shout out to Stanley. He was like Raven at American Family who did the score and stuff when we used to play
shout out
open
to Ray,
gym.
man.
Shout out to Raven. Stanley, cool guy. I remember him calling me over and saying like, hey man, those kids need that. And I'm doing this for free, bro. Because I'm like, y'all practicing 1 day a week. We get a game on the weekend. A lot of these kids love the game. And a lot of those kids gained a lot of confidence. And that was what got me out of that space, man. I said, this is what I'm going to do. But it still wasn't about basketball training for me. It was about the impact, being a George and showing these kids that who you are isn't attached to basketball. The impact that you're going to make isn't attached to basketball. The stuff that's going to make you a great person that people are going to like is not about basketball. It's going to be through all of the stuff that you got to go through and grouping that with the things that's already there, because that's what George did. I went through a lot, and George saw there's things already here because he pushing through. He going through this shit. I'm cussing him out, and he ain't mad. It's something there, and he brought those things out, and I did that for those kids. And so, you know, it was a great time going through the training phase, and that was kind of how I got my footing into doing stat as training, and it opened up my mind to really just think about the impact that I wanted to make on this world. And again, it comes down to what George did for me.
Absolutely. Stat has an interesting ring to it, bro, because of what it started as and then what it transitioned into.
Yeah.
Talk about the transition of that first transition that Stat was training, and then it went into the behind the scenes and behind the camera work.
Yeah, so going into the training so after the YMCA, I was like, I want to just do training. And the YMCA, even though I was helping those kids out and doing all that, that wasn't how you get into training. Again, George taught me, like, what are the guys that are doing it? What do they do? Trainers aren't doing this. This is good, but there's another level to this. And I started going into training, but I wanted to document the journey. And Wiz Khalifa, I'm a huge Wiz Khalifa fan. One of the things that, you know, I really loved about Wiz Khalifa was his day-to-day vlogs. He showed his life, and he was just being himself, and he had somebody follow him with the camera to show that. And it did a lot for me because he was just being who he was. And Wiz Khalifa's, I mean, he's dope. People love him, but like he's not, I would consider him being different, you know? And that spoke to me. And I remember wanting to say, man, I wish I could document my life that way, like meaning me be in front of the camera. But I was like, your life's not that cool to do that. So I kind of let it go. Fast forward to one summer, my dad used to buy bootleg DVDs, and he brought a stack of DVDs home. In that stack was Justin Bieber's Never Say Never documentary. And this is at the time he's singing to like the girls and stuff. Like, he's young. Nobody's listening to Justin Bieber. But I watched all those other movies so much that I got tired of it. And I said, you know what? Ain't nobody gonna know. Let me go ahead and watch this. I put in DVD, and I didn't listen to his music after that, but I got a different respect for Justin Bieber after watching that. And what that did for me, in addition to the Wiz Khalifa stuff, it painted this picture for me that perspective is everything. And that Stat, in addition to that, can offer different perspective. And I was attaching it to basketball as training because all I knew was basketball. But I had a passion for the video. Throughout my whole life, I was always interested in cameras. And I mean, I even went to school at EMU and did digital media, you know, and fast forward to when I got to the point where I couldn't really do the training the way I wanted to. I couldn't train and be behind the camera and do both effectively. So I was like, well, I have to do something. And I felt like I was giving up on Stat. But the light bulb that went off was the same impact that George made for you. Again, it's not just attached to training. And you love the video. You could still be a part of the game, and you could do all these other things. You can do the short films. You can do the behind the scenes like Wiz Khalifa day-to-days and all those things. And that's when I said, that's what it's going to be. And that's when the message became even bigger. And I had to take my own philosophy of what Stat was and say, you thinking too small. It's not just training. This video camera is going to allow you to change the world because you can control the narrative in front of that camera with all of your ideas and all of those things and all of the stuff that you went through by being treated different, and what you learned from that, you can put in front of the camera and put out content.
And, you know, for those who don't really know you, you know, this part is the craziest part, bro, because your father is no longer here with us today.
Yeah.
Rest in peace to your dad, man. He was such a cool guy, man.
Yeah.
Even him, taking us to AAU tournaments, him helping out my mom with the lawn care service business and
Yeah.
stuff. He was just a good soul, man. And there were some things he told you before he left that resonate with you to this day. Share some things that you remember and what keeps you going from everything that he taught you.
Yeah, and rest in peace to my dad, man. And at this point, like, we always talk about things have to go for you to grow. And my dad, he always kept it real. He always said, I'm gonna go one day. And it sucks for him to not be here, but my dad had no regrets in his life, man, and he really lived his life for him. And I'm catching on to that now. I always reflect on things. I look at my birth certificate. My dad had me when he was 33, and ever since I've known my dad, he always been the person that's gonna say, I don't care what nobody think about me. And I never understood that at a young age, struggling with my identity. But I'm 30 right now, and I'm at that point. And I realized he had to go through all that same bullshit I had to go through. And by the time he had me, he already was like, man, fuck all y'all. I'm going to do me. And I always admired that about my dad. And, going through life, I could tell he could see I was finding myself, and he couldn't even understand sometimes because I cared a lot about things. And so as I'm starting to do stat, I had a shirt that my dad supported everything that we did. He always wore a shirt. He always talked about, asked me what was going on. The basketball shirt that I had, on the back of it, it said, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. When he wear that shirt, people would always stop him and say how much they loved that. He would call me every single time. Man, I just saw somebody else. They love what the shirt says and this, that, and third. And he always pushed me to keep going. And it made me realize that, again, I talk a lot about my mom not being a team player. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just the facts. Like, every time that my dad tried a new business or tried to do something, she shut it down. And it eventually led to him doing something comfortable, which was the lawn care stuff. 'Cause that was a comfortable side gig for him to be out the house, away from her, to make money, to also show us life lessons and how to be responsible and all of those things. And as much as he believed in stat and the message, he also saw me. He also saw himself in me. And so, we had a conversation, man, and I let him know about all the things that we went through with my mom because, again, he was gone a lot, driving trucks, and she would always be manipulative and tell us, don't say nothing negative to your dad when he gets home. So a lot of this stuff he didn't know. And when we had that conversation and I told him what was going on, he felt really bad because he had no idea. And he understood my mission even more after that as well. And so, before he passed, he just told me, man, he said, look, I know it ain't easy. I know it's not what everybody wants you to do, but people need what you're doing. Straight up. People need what you're doing. Do not quit. And it kind of threw me off because my dad never really talked to me like that. He always encouraged us. He always supported us, but he let us do what we felt we needed to do. But when he said that, it did so much for me because it was like, it got to a point where my dad respected me as a man. I wasn't just his son. He respected me as a man. And again, he saw himself in me and he pushed me to say, don't quit, keep going. And, now that he's gone and we're doing all of these things, man, I just wish that I can't go back and change it, but I just always think about, like, man, what if I would have had this back in the day? What if I would have tapped into this early on and he could be here to live that? But I also have the realization that things got to go for you to grow. And I'm never going to quit because of what my dad told me and because he meant what he said. Yeah. And out of my family, I love them, but I'm going to carry the torch from my family further than anybody is ever going to because of that. And there's things that I've had to learn in my life that has made me understand I'm a boss, bro. Like, I'm not nothing other than that.
Yep.
And the people that growing up saw that tried to hide that from me, including my mom, including the family, including the fake friends, including all the people in the school, and all of those things. And I'm just now getting to a point where I'm truly embracing it, and it's a beautiful thing because I look back at all of that stuff, and it's been a blessing for me for sure.
And I think, I said this to you before, they were kind of intimidated, bro.
Yeah.
intimidated of your light, because like I say, I walk with a different spirit. So I know exactly when some people see that, they kind of don't know, especially when we're kids, they don't know how to handle it. So picking on you may be the only way that they can feel like they're secure with themselves, but they're unaware with their self-awareness at that point. But to wrap it up, man, I want you to share, man, you got a lighthouse tattoo, man. And I think that sums up exactly what you just said. Explain to people what that lighthouse tattoo means to you and what inspired you to get it.
Yeah, so I was listening to a podcast, and the guy on there, Sean Whalen, shout out to him, he said he had a lighthouse tattoo. And it was a podcast, so he explained what it meant. And pretty much long story short is this. Lighthouses and tugboats do the same thing. They save boats. The tugboat has to go out one by one and put wear and tear on itself to go save that boat. And for me, I was that tugboat when I started to get that hope and that light, and I started to see people wanted to, like, I'm like, yo, you need to change this and do that, because I remember what George did for me. He pushed me and he saw the best in me, and I started to see the best in people who didn't really want to see the best in themselves. And the difference is this, is the lighthouse saves boats too, but the lighthouse stands firm and shines its light, and it's up to the boat to come to safety. And the lighthouse doesn't get anywhere and tear from that. The lighthouse just stand there and be who it's going to be. And so for me, it was so powerful to hear that story, because even after all that bullshit and then me coming into who I am, I burnt myself out a lot trying to help people, because that was part of my mission of STAT. But also, you don't really, when you get to that point, you don't really look at like this person doesn't want to help themselves.
Yeah.
You just see the best in them, because when I was coming up to George, I'm sure he could have probably said, Isaiah don't want to help himself just off of that. But he helped me, and I loved it, you know? And so I became a tugboat, because I'm like, this person just don't get it yet. Let me make them get it, you know? And part of what STAT's mission is being that lighthouse, is just understanding that you got to be self-aware of who you are and what you want to do, because no matter how successful you are individually, there's only a certain group of people that God is going to place in your life to change. And I have a personal responsibility to change those people, but I can't change everyone.
Yep.
So by me changing myself and changing the people that's for me, I got to understand that that's enough. That's being the light, because now they're going to change themselves and change other people.
Yep.
And that's the icing on the cake of all of this, and why I can embrace the journey more now, and why I can say, I don't care how long it takes.
Yep.
Just like when I was at EMU, I got to a point where I was frustrated because I didn't get a chance on that team. But I got to the point where I said, dog, I don't care how long it take. I'm going to show up to practice, and that's my game every day. And I had to look back at that and reference that in the lighthouse as well, because it's just be who you are, and it's going to take you to where you need to go, and the right people are going to appreciate that, and your energy is going to go into all the right areas and all the right places. And that takes us to where we are at now with the STAT platform, with the podcast, with the short films, with the behind the scenes, with anything that I do in front of the camera or behind the camera. Any person that I come across with this video camera and this platform, this is how I live my life. Everything that I'm saying here or on any other episode or anything, and you notice because you're around me, this is how I live my life, and I only surround myself with that. And so all of those things came together for me to get to this point now, and I'm just grateful to attach myself to something like that, because now it's not even my thing no more. It's all of ours.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. That's beautiful, man. I just want to, give my final thoughts on it, and then I'll let you close this out, man. But I hope everybody was tuned in, man. I hope everybody could take a small piece, if not a big piece, away from this, man, because we all have a story, and we all have similar stories when it comes to facing adversity, hitting walls, going through dark places and dark spaces. And again, I always say everybody doesn't make it out. So I'm fortunate to sit here with you, bro, because we've both been through a hell of a journey. Yeah. And we're a byproduct of, as long as you keep going, man, the sky's the limit, bro. Because again, we wouldn't even be sitting right here doing what we're doing right now if one of us was to quit when we went through those dark places. So for those watching, man, if you are in the dark space right now, man, I just hope, again, you can take something away from this, and just kind of look at us for an example, man. Like, not to say that we're not special, because we are, man.
Yeah.
We're two special people, but we are doing this, man. We are grinding, we are working, and we are trying to inspire everyone that's for us.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, man. And just like you said, bro, we chose to change who we were, to touch the people that we need to touch, and hopefully they can do the same and touch the people that they need to touch, so on and so forth, man. And we'll be in a better place if that happens, man.
Yeah,
and unfortunately, we don't have everybody that's on that same mission because, again, everybody doesn't want to either help themselves or even want to help somebody else.
Yeah.
So, again, man, I'm so thankful to be here with you, bro. Your story was phenomenal, man, because I was a part of it. I was part of the journey, man. So everything that I just heard, man, I was right there in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
Again, man, I'll let you close this out, but there were so many gems in that hour and 40-some minutes that, this podcast is going to be, but you can take something away from it and shape into your life and maybe touch somebody else, man. That's our mission.
Yeah, for sure. And, I appreciate everyone who's tuned in and listening because, I'm at a point in my life where I can sit here and talk about these things. I'm still even in my head about a lot of stuff that I'm talking about, but at the end of the day, it's for a bigger reason and it's for a purpose. And, if you don't take anything else from this, just understand this, man, that we're all capable of greatness. And in order to get that greatness, you got to surround yourself with the right people. And that takes a village. And when you do that, the earlier you can do that, the earlier you can become self-aware and start making the impact in life that you need to make and not get caught up in all the things that don't matter. But again, I appreciate everybody for tuning in. This was a great episode for me. If you got something from it, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with a friend. Again, we're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers right now. That's our goal. We're pushing for that, for us to continue to keep doing this and offering as much value as possible. So again, if you got something from this, tap in with us. We appreciate everyone who's been showing love. We got a great episode coming up after this as well. Next week, we got our guy Zay.
Yeah, man, I got my brother. Shout out Zay, man.
Yeah, Hugo Eve coming in here, man. He gonna talk to you guys about his journey and what he's got going on. So look out for that. And guys, remember, man, stay focused on the mission and run your race, because it's only a matter of time before you get the success that you create, man. And keep pushing, keep grinding. And with everything that we're trying to do here, we're going to create a village that's going to be able to help us all tap into something bigger than ourselves and push that message forward. So till next time, it's Deuce and Stat from the 7 Podcast. We'll catch y'all next week.
Peace.
Working on a weekend like usual. Way off in the deep end like usual. Niggas swear they passed us, they doing too much. Haven't done my taxes.